Welcome to Your Future Starts Now, the go-to podcast for extraordinary women who are ready to step into their next chapter with authentic confidence. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua, empowerment coach, motivational speaker, children's book author, and girl mom. Whether you're a corporate powerhouse or an entrepreneur, this show is designed for you. Your Future Starts Now is more than just a podcast. It's a movement towards rewriting the rules of success for high-achieving women. Are you ready to get unstuck and step into your next chapter? If so, you're exactly where you need to be. Your future starts now. Welcome to Your Future Starts Now. I'm your host, Gia Lacqua. Thanks for joining us. Today, I am so excited to introduce you to Traci Peterson. Tracy is an international speaker, highly sought-after trainer, has spoken to over 24,000 people, performed in front of 100,000 in sports audiences. She's a board-certified family nurse practitioner, founder, CEO of Elevate Wellness and Aesthetics. She's treated over 6,000 female patients and was awarded the #1 top team builder in 50 countries with Amare for outstanding leadership and long-term team retention. Her latest project is called Be, a mother-daughter movement grounded in connection and protection. With collective medical wellness, aesthetics, and leadership experience of 15 plus years, Tracy is widely regarded by her male and female peers, patients, clients, entrepreneurs, and moms alike. She helps high-performing women and their daughters conquer self-criticism and comparison through identifying their unique and divine gifts and finding validation through learning to love yourself and to lean on God. She helps people practically remember who they are so they can confidently raise the next generation of leaders. Tracy, so happy to have you with us. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Gia. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to chat with you today. So before we dive in, so our listeners can get to know you a little bit better, tell us a little bit about your backstory and kind of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I love being able to share my story because I feel like we all have stories and we all have sort of this evolution that we go through as women. And so my background, I was raised in a really good family. I would say that I was a high achiever from a very young age. I'm a recovering perfectionist now. I had those perfectionist tendencies very early on in my life. I always played sports, and I always wanted to play with the boys, and all those good things. And what I had and what I noticed is I had these natural talents and these natural leadership gifts and abilities, and I was celebrated for those like all throughout my life until I reached the age of 14. And I remember at the time, I was waiting to hear the results of the student body office, class presidencies. And I was sitting in that last period of the day. And I swear I didn't even remember anything that teacher said. I just heard like the ticking of the clock. And I remember his voice coming over the loudspeaker. And he said, "We have the winners of your student body officers." And he read through Secretary Crystal Sorensen, Vice President Sunny Dent, and your new student body president is Tracy Osler. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's amazing." And everybody in my class was like jumping all around me, and they were so excited and so happy for me. And I was like, "Oh, I won," right? It's like what you want. And I was so happy in that moment. And I remember walking out in the hallway as a 14-year-old girl and walking up to my group of friends. And they didn't know that I was standing there. And they were like, "I can't even believe that she won anyway. Like, she thinks she's so great," and all of this, which obviously completely broke my heart. Mm-hmm. And I was like, So I went to somebody that I loved, looking for validation, looking for just some empathy and love. And I said, why do these girls have such a hard time with me? And this person that I love and that I care about said, "Well, we've been talking about it, and we all agree that you're too confident, you're too bossy, you're too loud, and it makes people feel uncomfortable."
Wow.
And so I think from that point on, I started feeling like it was my responsibility to make people around me comfortable.
Yeah.
Like I needed to lower my natural gifts, like achieve, but don't achieve too much to make people feel uncomfortable, which was really a confusing place for me to be because I feel like, I had these natural leadership gifts and abilities until somebody said something. And I think many people, especially women and men as well, we can trace it back to something that somebody said or something that somebody did where we were given this label that created a limit within ourselves. And I remember I would have this like response anytime I heard the word bossy. I was like, no, like it was like a trigger word. I was like, no, I'm not bossy. I'm not bossy. No, I'm not. I'm not bossy. And that carried on, Gia, for probably like 20 years. It started this sort of people pleasing, like looking for every bit of validation in every accolade and every achievement. It's like I became this hyper achiever to try to fill this void and this hole because I thought there was something wrong with me. I thought there was something wrong with those gifts that I innately had. And it wasn't until later on. That's why I'm so impassioned about this mother-daughter movement, because I think sometimes very, very well-intentioned mothers, we can inadvertently project our insecurities onto our daughters. And so I wanted to create a container and a community for mothers and daughters where they could personally develop together, where they could move from a place of insecurity to surety about who they are, about what gifts they have to give, and they can then support one another in developing those gifts. So that's really where this came from, is how can we liberate ourselves from some of these limits? How can we avoid, as mothers, projecting some of our insecurities onto our daughters? And the way we do that is by continually developing and working on our own insecurities, knowing that we have them, and then continually be pouring into ourselves and trying to gain real inner confidence. And you find that through validating self and finding that validation not in external people, but in the internal and the eternal. It's by looking inward and upward for your validation.
Such an incredible, incredible story. Thank you for sharing that, Tracy. There's so much there to unpack. Well, first of all, I mean, we know 14-year-old girls can be brutal. And, although it was a very difficult, I imagine, and challenging situation for you to navigate, it's beautiful to see you on the other side of that, right? And where it brought you in terms of pursuing your passion and your purpose. So there is beauty in that. But I want to go back to a couple of things that you said that are really super important. So I think a lot of us have had similar experiences, and a lot of our listeners can relate to those situations where we were too much for somebody, right? Too loud, too bossy, too confident, too silly, right? And as kids, as you said, sometimes it's inadvertent, sometimes it's not intentional, it's not meant to be malicious, but whether it's family or friends, we get labeled.
Yes.
And those labels stick, and they stick with us through childhood into adulthood when we are no longer that same person.
Exactly.
And I see it all the time in the clients that I work with. We hold on to them because they become part of our identity, right? And then you're afraid to let them go because you're like, no, this is who I am. But the reality is we're dynamic, fluid people, and we change and we evolve. And so, but it's really hard to shed those old layers and those old identities. So I appreciate that you mentioned, 20 years later, you still had, right? And it drove some of those qualities that also I think everyone can also relate to, the people pleasing and the perfectionism, right? And that external validation, because we are trying to accommodate other people. We are trying to make sure everybody around us is comfortable. right? That they are happy. And what does that mean? We have to adapt. We have to change who we are. And that light that you bring to the world, if somebody says it's too bright, what do? We turn it down.
Totally.
Right. And so
Totally.
I love everything you just said. There's a couple things you mentioned I would love to dig into a little bit more. You mentioned, having that sense of inner confidence and really shifting to self-validation,
Mhm.
away from the external validation to self-validation. So could you elaborate on that
Yeah.
a little bit more, those concepts and tips and tools you have for women and how to do that?
Yeah, definitely. I think it goes back to really looking inward and upward for your validation. So, how do you do that? Like, where do you start? I developed these 7 woman lessons um, in order to help women and their daughters look inward and upward for validation because my daughter, who's 11 now, I have an 11-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 6-year-old. But when my 11-year-old daughter, Quinn, was 9, she said to me, it was just regular after school activities, like the TV was on, I was doing dishes.
Mhm.
And she said, Mom, can we do woman lessons? And I was like, yes, like we can do woman lessons, of course. Like as a 9-year-old, what a mature question to ask. Can we do
Yeah.
woman lessons? And I was like, yes, what does that mean to you? What do you want to learn? And she said, well, I want to learn how to do my makeup. I want to learn how to put together an outfit. And I want to learn how to cook. And I like my mama heart was like, oh, that is so
Mhm.
sweet. And then this driving entrepreneurial, like powerful woman was like, what? Is that all that she thinks that it is to be a woman? Is what we look like and what we do? And I was like, how can I teach her how women are so much more than that? How you can be a confident, a self-assured, articulate, opinionated woman, spirit-led, all of those things. Like, who do I want her to grow up to be? And who am I now? And what lessons did I have to learn? What did it take for me to get here? And how can I help her to avoid all those pitfalls that I struggled with for over 20, almost 30 years now. And that's what helped me to develop these 7 woman lessons. And so the base, the foundation of it is remembering who you are. Because I think oftentimes as parents, we have children and it's less about us teaching them how to be an adult and them reminding us how to be more like a child.
100%.
100%. Because I think if we all think back to a time in our life, and I take my moms and my daughters through this, where we close our eyes and we remember back to a time when we were the most self-assured, the most happy, the most blissful, the most filled with joy, and we didn't care what other people thought about us. Usually it's right between the ages of like 6 and 8. And my mind takes me back to a time when I was with my friends and I was 7 years old and I went to my best friend Stephanie's house and we were running through the sprinklers. Like we had
Mhm.
that long yellow slip and slide. And never once did I think, what swimming suit should I wear so it doesn't show my cellulite? Like, what friends are going to be there and are they more fit than me? Should I wear a one piece? Like all of those insecurities that pop up for us as women, which is so unfortunate. And it breaks my heart and it makes me so sad. And I remember going to Stephanie's house and walking into her backyard, and my feet were greeted by this cold, muddy hose water. Like we all know that, like freezing cold hose
Mhm.
water. And you were like so grounded in the present moment. And you were so grateful to just be with your friends and be alive and have this amazing, able body where you could run and jump and laugh and play, and you didn't once care what you looked like, what somebody thought of you. You were just able to be.
Yeah.
Like you were just able to be. And that's why I actually named this mother-daughter movement Be. It's a place where you can build belief in yourself. and elevate other people as you become who God created you to be. And he created us, and we started out as just these amazing children, right? And then the world sort of packs all of these labels, and everybody else projects their insecurities onto us. And we sort of take those throughout our life. So I think at the base, at the foundation, is remembering who you are every day, reminding yourself who that young girl was
Mhm.
and who that young girl still is
Mhm.
inside of you. And then also remembering whose you are. Like, God created you with very specific divine gifts for a very specific reason. And I believe that each one of us has a mission and a potential that only we can fulfill. We were given certain trials, certain hardships, certain gifts and abilities, and we're meant to bless other people with those. And so I think if we can identify and own whatever that divine gift is, knowing that the world sees your different as difficult, but God sees your different as divine.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to that example of when I was 14, I learned how to become liberated from some of those limits through reframing. So when I think, oh, you're too bossy, I reframe and I say, actually, I'm a master delegator.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no longer this negative connotation with it. There is this positive and uplifting thing that actually helps to benefit society and helps to benefit my businesses and helps to benefit my family. A lot of times women will be told, you're too emotional. No, it's almost like you're setting up a boundary and you're saying no. Like, even just saying no, that's a pattern interrupt as well, right? You're saying, no, I'm choosing this. I don't choose this that doesn't serve me. I choose that I'm not too emotional. I'm actually incredibly empathetic,
Mm-hmm.
which allows me to connect well to people. So it's reframing some of those negative labels. And that's how you become liberated from those things. And that's the thing. Whenever somebody's like, Tracy, like you're you're high maintenance. It's like, actually, I just know my value. Like, those things don't trigger me anymore,
Yeah.
Gia. If somebody
Yeah.
calls me bossy, I'm like, yes,
Thank
I'm a
you.
master delegator. I get crap done. That's what I do,
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
those are two of the lessons that we talk about, but the foundation is remembering who you are and who you used to be, and then owning your divine gift
Mm-hmm.
and learning to relabel some of those limits. And that's truly how we become liberated from them. And it's such an empowering place to be. I think it's honestly learning to love yourself. We have to learn how to love ourselves again. And I think oftentimes in the Christian community, sometimes we forget, I think it's Matthew 22, when we learn about like the two great commandments, there's a little tag at the end of the second, right? We focus on love God and love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
We forget the as you love yourself. And that is critical in order for you to love your neighbor, because you can't give what you don't have. And the best way to honor your creator is to love his gifts. And you're one of his gifts.
Yeah.
Like, we were created in the image of God. And so I just think that divine relationship between self and the creator is invaluable. It's invaluable. So we talk about that a lot within this mother-daughter movement, like setting up daily gratitude practices to really kind of ground yourself in the present moment, and really honoring and owning your divine gifts, and then looking for those divine gifts in other women too. I think that's something that culture and society doesn't want us to do. They typically pit us against each other.
Yeah.
And it's very competitive when it should be collaborative. And the only way we change that is if we no longer accept that and we start being what we want to see.
For sure. For sure. So much there, and so beautifully stated. It's funny, what you just said resonated with me as a mother.
because my 9-year-old just the other day was watching one of her shows, and after the show was over, she had gone to her room and I found her sobbing. And I said, "Oh no, what just happened?"
Yeah.
And she tells me that she's crying about the episode. And I said, "Well, was it sad?" And she goes, "Yeah, but it ended up being a happy ending." And so I said, "Okay, well, what's causing you to cry?" She said, "There's really sad music." And it finally dawned upon me that it's the first time that she had experienced, like she had created such a connection with the characters that she
Mm,
actually
mm.
felt their sadness, right? When you get
Yes, she
really
felt
into a
empathy.
show or a movie and you like feel what the characters are feeling, you go, it's the first time she experienced that. And my initial reaction was like, don't be too emotional, right? That was my
Sure.
instinct, was to try to calm her down and say it's just a show. And then I said, no, this kid is a highly empathetic,
Absolutely.
highly in tune with her emotions. And that is just one of her many gifts that
Yes,
this child is bringing to this world. Right.
absolutely.
And so it totally reframed how I just sat with her and held her
Good for
and let
you.
her cry. Right. And just
Mm,
let her get it out. And so it was a really important moment for me as a parent and as a mother.
absolutely. Absolutely. And good job. Like good job for you. Cause I think that's what I'm trying to empower these moms, these high performing women with, is to use these 1 minute moments.
Yeah.
Use those 1 minute moments to your advantage, to your daughter's advantage. When I was standing at the counter and my daughter asked me, can we do woman lessons? And I want to learn how to cook, how to do my makeup, and how to put together an outfit. I could have been like, sure, yeah, cool, we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to my next task. But these 1 minute moments
Yeah.
are speckled throughout our day, and they're so foundational and so formative. And the way that you responded in that moment was like a thing of beauty. Like you allowed her to be who God created her to be.
Mm-hmm.
You validated, right, her emotion in that moment. And emotions are beautiful. And the fact that she could feel that, like, I love how deeply you feel for people, right? It's just
Mm-hmm.
validating those emotions. That's so good. I mean, it's, again, we just have to be careful, just so careful how the words that we choose, because the words that we choose become our children's inner dialogue
Yeah, for sure. And I
for the
think
rest of their life.
for the rest of their lives. And to your earlier point, it's, what we were taught and told growing up, we've grown and evolved. And so that is a pattern interruption of itself, right? A lot of us were taught to suppress or ignore the quote unquote
Yeah.
ugly feelings or the bad feelings, or don't
Yep.
make other people feel funny because you're sad or you're
Totally.
crying,
Yep.
right? And so that is definitely a shift. It's a mindset shift to say, no, we're going to embrace that sadness.
Totally.
We're going to cry it out, right? Like, and
Yep.
that's a significant shift, but it is those moments, exactly to what you just said, that make and shape who they are as they grow up. And it's
Yeah.
also modeling that behavior, right? Because if I tell her that it's okay, and, in the moments when I do cry in front of my kids, I have to remind myself, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
okay for them to see me cry because I tell them that it's okay
Yeah.
to cry. Right. And
Yep.
so if you're not modeling and living that behavior, then it doesn't land the same way.
Exactly. Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with feelings. And I expect the next generation, because I think naturally, like, high performing women, like, we already have enough expectations for ourselves, right? Like, that we're trying to live up to. And it's like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Tracy, Gia, if every single 1 minute moment matters, what if I screw up? Guess what? You're going
Yeah.
to. The
Sure.
beautiful part about life is the repair.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's owning your mistakes when you make them, because nobody's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then going to your child, repairing those, having that tough conversation, owning your own stuff, and saying, I didn't get that right. Like, will you please forgive
Mm-hmm.
me? Because, just to your point, you're modeling the type of behavior that you want them to go out
Yeah,
and do.
for
We
sure.
want a society and a community of people who own their mistakes, not who hide them under a rug, not who lie about them and try to cover them up, not people who suppress those emotions. Feelings are free. What you do next is what makes you who you are.
Mm-hmm.
Feelings are free. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, everybody can feel overwhelmed, but it's a choice to stay overwhelmed and to be overwhelmed and to be an overwhelmed person. That's a choice.
Yeah. And just before we started recording this episode, Tracy, you and I were having a conversation, and I would love to go back to that. Speaking of being overwhelmed, I love there's a tool that you use, or a tip, in terms of that language shift of being busy, right? We still live in a bit of a hustle culture. There's still a lot of pride in being busy. And it is so overused. How are you? I'm busy. Well, we're all busy.
Yeah.
So, but you have a different take on it. So I'd love for you to share that with our listeners, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. I don't believe in the word busy. I've completely removed it from my vocabulary, and now I choose the word full. I live a full life. I'm fulfilled in my full life. Everything is full. Because to me, I was using, like you mentioned, busyness as a badge of honor and sort of like a pass. It was like a get out of jail free card. And it was also just like this pass. It's like, oh, I can't help you with XYZ because I'm so busy. Or the first thing when you meet someone, you're like, oh, I'm so busy. Where really, to me, being busy makes me a victim.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm so busy. I don't have a choice in my life or all the activities, which is a lie.
Yeah.
We have a choice that we can curate whatever type of life that we want. So I choose to live a full life. To me, that is when I perform at my best. And especially as women, I think we thrive in a place of creation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is innately a part of our divine natures to be creating. That doesn't mean that we have to take on too much, but what we're all looking for is alignment. And you can be creating an environment in your home. You can be creating a culture within your family. You can be creating things inside of your home and outside of the home, one or the other, or both. And as long as you're feeling in alignment with the things that you value, and I like to call them energy generators, we take our mothers and daughters through this little workshop of what are the 3 things, list out 3 things that help you to, or 3 things that are energy generators that pour energy back into you. Oftentimes it's recreation. But if we're constantly checking things off of our to-do list and not taking any time for those energy generators, for maybe a little recreation, then we're going to always feel empty and depleted and burnt out and overwhelmed because we're not honoring those things that we value and those things that are regenerating our energy. Literally, recreation is a recreation. It recreates energy. And oftentimes it even recreates time, because instead of just going down our to-do list and lamenting and loathing and procrastinating all the things that we don't want to do, something that probably could have taken us 10 minutes is now taking us 10 hours because we're pushing it off. If we would have just adjusted and made sure that we hit our energy generators first, then you're like overflowing. You're in this constant state of energy regeneration. So you have more than enough. You have more than enough to give your family. You have more than enough to give your businesses. And typically, if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're feeling burnt out, it's because you are not prioritizing your energy generators. We just had this mother-daughter workshop, and I was talking with this CEO of a high-end shoe line in New York, and her eyes were about like this after we did this energy regeneration exercise. And she's like, I think my day and the way I've scheduled myself is completely off. She's like, that's why I feel like I'm up to here and I'm just trying to tread water. And she's like, I need to go back and make sure that I prioritize those energy generators, because then you're always feeling fulfilled.
Yeah.
You're literally overflowing and you have more to give. And instead of giving our families what's left of us, we can give our families the best of us.
Yeah.
Like that, to your point, you were talking to me about success. Like that to me is success, is showing up as the best version of yourself. And sometimes that requires for women to push back a little bit, on this sort of self-sacrificing, messaging that we sometimes get. And, because I think our children don't need self-sacrificing martyrs. They need sturdy leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And the way we present them a sturdy leader is by first leading ourselves. And there's no shame in that. There's absolutely no shame in that at all. It's actually the absolute best thing you could do for our children, because it's in your example that you're showing them how to live their life. I mean, when we kind of take a step back and when we kind of almost make it objective, if we take an objective view at it and we step back and we say, okay, children, okay, daughter, honey, you can be whatever you want to be in this world. Go after your dreams. You can be whatever you want to be until you become a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Then you need to sacrifice all of that. You need to sacrifice your health. You need to sacrifice any dreams that you had.
Yeah.
The greatest gift we can give our children is the gift of a mother who believes in herself and goes after her dreams. I believe that with my whole heart, because we're modeling the behavior that we wish to see in them. And so it's a shift. It's a shift though. But also I think there's a little bit of like this uprising,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's sort of this new breed of mama that's like being created from maybe some of these unhealthy patterns that we see in the world, or maybe that we were raised with, or some of these kind of toxic labels that we were surrounded by. But I mean, mamas like you and, like tons of women that I work with, they're wanting to be those sturdy leaders that our children really need. And it's exciting. I really think it's this exciting time to be a mom. And we were called to be our children's mothers right now in a chaotic world when they need sturdy leaders.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And I love, when we are able to, we do get mired down in the day to day, and we do live in a chaotic world. And, there certainly is no guidebook for parenting in 2024.
No, or ever.
Forever. But, I think one of the things that's important is to take that step back and look at parenting styles of our generation and the way we were raised, and then look at how you want your children to raise their children, right? And realize that we're at a pivotal inflection point where we can really shift the trajectory of that next generation. I mean, we're the ones feeling that squeeze, right?
Sure.
But
Sure.
It is actually empowering. It's really powerful when you think about it from that perspective.
It is. And again, I think moms, we also need to give ourselves more credit.
Yeah.
We're doing amazing. Like, we're awesome. Like all the things that we're juggling and the probably 2,000 items that run through our mind at any given moment at any given day. Something that's helped me a lot as an entrepreneur and as, a high performing woman and as a mom is giving myself some grace.
Yeah.
Because I think as high performing women, we're always focused on like, what's next? Like, what's that next goal? What's that next thing that I'm working on? And we don't stop. Like, we don't give ourselves permission to just stop and like look around and appreciate all the things that we're doing.
For sure.
I think it's really easy for us to focus on the one thing and the one area that we've fallen short and not look at the other 99 things that we've nailed and we've gotten right in our day. you know?
100%. Yeah, we definitely we're on to the next thing, right? And to your point, we don't stop and reflect and appreciate where we are, how far we've come, the moment that we're in. And so I think giving ourselves that grace is important. It took my 7-year-old. It was a beautiful moment. She reminded me of that exact point the other night. She said to me, "Mommy, you do so much for us."
Oh,
And I was so caught off guard when she said that because I don't expect my 7-year-old to really know or understand the
mm,
extent of all the things we do to keep their world running,
yep,
right? Safe and healthy and happy.
yep,
But she really took note of it. And she's like, "You do a lot to keep us, keep everything together." And she's like, "You do a lot for us." And it was a beautiful moment. So
totally
sometimes
beautiful.
you don't realize how much they see it and
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And what a
Um,
gift that she has. I'm sure you just wanted to like bottle it up
yeah,
and like
of
take a little
course.
drink with that like every day. But truly, what a gift
Yeah.
she has to see people.
Yeah.
She sees you. She sees your effort. Like that's the thing is I think if moms we can put on like these gift goggles.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I'm just going to put on these divine gift goggles and I'm going to go throughout my day and my interactions with my kids, which sometimes super suck and other times are super great.
Yeah.
If I can put on these divine gift goggles and I can look for the divine gifts in my kids and then I can talk about
Sure.
that with them and I can identify it in them and I can celebrate that gift in them. And it doesn't just stop with our children. Let's put
No.
on those divine gift goggles when you and I are talking and let's talk about each other's divine gifts. When we're around,
Mhm.
other women out, in the entrepreneurial field or in our communities or in our churches, like let's stop looking through the goggles of comparison and look at those divine gift goggles and I think that just shifts the way that people show up and they start walking around sort of with this
Mhm.
inner confidence like wow like people see me and I have this divine gift and I have this self-worth and this divine worth inside of me like my life matters like
Yeah.
what I'm doing here matters and how I use that gift to bless other people matters.
Mhm.
We're not only trying to elevate and lift the community, but I believe that, you know, we live on after this life. Like what we do here matters and the interactions that we have with our children and with other people around us, it truly matters. So how can we breathe life and how can we light other people's candles? I mean
Mhm.
that's what we teach our moms and our daughters and that's what our community does is
Incredible.
we light candles in
Yeah.
other people
Yeah.
and it's that is that's how you light the world. That's how
Yeah.
we change the world. The world right now is there's so much darkness. There's just a lot of darkness. But like we were talking about on these podcasts, you get to see those little flickers of light. You get to see like amazing people who want to do good in the world, who want to use those divine gifts to better the world and better other people. And that's how we bring light to the world. And that's how we're going to get through some dark times that are ahead is knowing what our light is
Mhm.
and not dimming it for anybody else,
Yeah.
but letting it shine as bright as possible. And if it's too bright for you, here you go. You can have my sunglasses. Because, like if it's too bright for you, like you're not my person. I can
Yeah.
still love you,
Yeah. They
like
can
from
take a
maybe
step
a
back and
distance.
watch from afar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
step back and watch from afar. Here's a
Yeah.
pair of here's a pair
I
of
love
like
it.
solar eclipse glasses.
Exactly. I love it. I love it. So powerful. Tracy, just before we wrap up, what is one thing you want our listeners to consider doing differently or changing after listening to this episode?
Mm. First of all, I want all you high performing mamas to know that you're doing a great job. That if you feel this little like ping, like, oh, I'm not doing that, I'm not getting that right, or
Mhm.
I messed up, that's okay. You can make a small little micro adjustment and do just a little bit better. Look for those 1 minute moments in your day. Look at your children and look at other women through those divine gift goggles. And so many things will change for you.
Mhm.
And put those divine gift goggles on and make sure to look in the mirror make sure to look in the mirror and really identify what your divine gift is, and like sit in it and own it, and figure out how you can magnify that. And if people go to my Instagram at Mother Daughter Movement, there's a divine gift guide. It's in one of my highlight bubbles. You could just go click on that, and it's a free download, and it walks you through some questions to ask yourself to help you identify your divine gift. It's a super fun activity to do with your daughters as well.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, because it's important. It's really important to see that and to own it. And also know it may take a little bit of reframing.
Yeah.
With some of those labels that maybe you were given and that maybe you were still holding on to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Such great advice. And Tracy, we talk a lot about success and redefining success on this podcast. So I would love to know from your perspective, how do you define success? What does that look like for you? And how has that definition evolved for you over time?
It's definitely evolved because I thought success was achievements and accolades.
Yeah.
But what I've come to learn and come to find out over 25 years of struggle and hardship and masterminds and personal development and so many things is that success is really honoring your values as a woman. Because you were a woman before you were a mom. And so making sure to honor those values, those energy generators, that's how you live a fulfilled, aligned life. Is making sure that you're hitting those three, and then you build your life around those. And no matter what you choose to do, no matter where you fill in the gaps, you're going to feel fulfilled. You're going to feel happy. That is how we truly leave a legacy, is honoring and nurturing those values every day, every week. And that's what's going to make you be able to fulfill that potential that God placed inside of you.
Sure.
And that's really what success, that's how I've redefined success, is not accolades or anything external and outside of me, but it's really getting to learn to love myself and to lean on God. And that's helped me to have true inner confidence. So I'm that much more confident in raising the next generation of leaders.
Beautiful. So beautifully stated. Tracy, where can our listeners learn more about you and the work that you do?
Yes. So they can go to my Instagram at Mother Daughter Movement. That's the Mother Daughter Movement page. And we actually have a huge weekend connection summit for mothers and daughters. So it's for daughters between the ages of 9 and 12. Right during that age, they actually, in their psychosocial development, they are deciding between identity and confusion. Basically, they're learning who they are. So we give them lots of activities, lots of good, interactions with people. And we go through our woman lessons on how to look inward and upward for their validation. And especially with social media, and especially with, friendships and all the chaos that's going on in the world, it's an amazing place for you to invest in your relationship with your daughter, but also to invest in the relationship with yourself. Because we can take a girl to a camp and remove her from her environment, right? And make her feel all good and teach her all these skills, and she's feeling amazing. And then if we put her back in the exact same environment, she'll slide back into some of those similar patterns. And so again, this is just a beautiful multi-generational movement, mother-daughter movement, where mothers and daughters can come together and personally develop, where they can work on their own insecurities. But it is not like a deep, dark place. This is like high action, lots of movement, little 20-minute segments. It's June 7th and 8th. So anybody can go to tracipeterson.com and you can get all the information. It's going to be here in Utah. So it's going to be an amazing mother-daughter weekend, like with the mountains. We can hook you up with hikes, all those things. But it's a day and a half event. Also, if you're listening to me on this podcast and anything that Gia or I talked about resonated with you, go onto Instagram and send me a DM. If you're like, I think I want to go to this, like, reach out to me. Nobody runs my social media. I do. so we can get on a phone call, we can hop on a Zoom. Let's talk about how we can improve your inner confidence, your love of self, your relationship with God, and your relationship with your daughter. Reach out to me. Let's talk. Let's get you the help you need. And if it's not a good fit, this mother-daughter movement for you, I can connect you with lots of other people that can be able to give you what you're looking for.
Perfect. That sounds incredible. This has been such an empowering conversation. Tracy, I want to thank you for being here, for sharing your insights and your expertise.
You're amazing. Thanks for having me. Truly. You're such a good mama. And what you're doing here is meaningful and it's
Thank
changing
you.
people's lives.
Yeah.
It's inspiring to see.
Thank you. And of course, you can visit my website at gialacqua.com. Reach out to me on Instagram at gialacqua. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. This is Gia signing off with gratitude for your time and energy. Our mic drops, but the movement continues. Until next time, your next chapter is waiting. Take care.
That concludes another empowering episode of Your Future Starts Now. Before we wrap up, I want to thank this incredible community of high-achieving women. Your energy, resilience, and commitment to growth are the driving force behind what we do. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate it, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Your feedback fuels our mission to empower high-achieving women just like you. And of course, share Your Future Starts Now with the extraordinary women in your life who are also on a journey of healing and empowerment. Connect with us on social media, share your thoughts, let us know what topics you'd like to explore in future episodes. Stay connected on Instagram at gialacqua. I encourage you to carry the energy of this conversation into your day and keep on supporting the incredible women around you. Until next time, remember, your next chapter is waiting.